Welcome everyone to tonight's session, So Low Yet So Loved, a personal testimony on moving on from a troubled marriage. So while we strongly believe in saving marriages, we also recognize the reality that not all marriages are successful, or some should not have been. This class aims to support those whose marriages have been declared null or who are legally separated. Tonight's speaker, Tinette Cortez, captured her journey in her book, So Low Yet So Loved. Tinette will share her experiences, both challenges and triumphs, as she moved on from a troubled marriage and embraced life as a single mother. Besides being an author, Tinette is an international speaker, a training consultant, and personal development coach. She is the founder and CEO of Consult Asia Global, a learning and development consulting firm with a presence in the Philippines, UK, Canada, Australia. With nearly 30 years of experience in luxury, hospitality, business consulting, and social entrepreneurship, Tinette has created and delivered world-class customer service, sales, leadership learning programs for various industries. Tinette graduated with distinction from United Kingdom's University of Oxford, holding a master's level postgraduate diploma in global business. And from Ateneo de Manila University here, she earned a bachelor's degree in psychology. She supports various charitable institutions by sending children from underprivileged backgrounds to school. As a solo parent to her daughter, Sophia, Tinette self-published her book, So Low Yet So Loved, with a personal mission to educate and empower solo parents to live meaningful lives with their children. Please join me in welcoming Tinette Cortez.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. I am very honored to have been invited to share with you my own journey. And so Alisa mentioned earlier that, not all marriages are successful, and it has nothing to do with you or your partner, your husband, being bad. Okay, so I am not here to say that, oh, you are not a good person, or your husband or ex-husband is not a good person. That is not the whole message here. So the message of this talk is really how I was able to move on because my marriage did not last more than 2 years. Okay, so tonight's talk is entitled So Low Yet So Loved, and How I Moved On from a Troubled Marriage. So let me start off with an image that actually resonates with me quite strongly. Okay, so this is an image that never ceases to make me tear up. I have this literally on my laptop, and every time I open my laptop, this reminds me that, at some point in my life, I really, broke into pieces. I almost, when I say I fell down, literally rock bottom, I was down, I was emotionally, mentally, and physically down. And I never really had anybody to hang on to except God. And in this photo, if you notice, this tree has actually thrived. It grew into a beautiful, unique looking tree only because it didn't let go of that one root, probably one root that was hanging on to the soil where it was planted in the first place. So this is something that I'd like for us to reflect on, like wherever you are in life right now, whether you are, struggling in your marriage, or maybe you are already separated, or maybe you just got married and you're still trying to navigate through your married life. Sometimes we just really have to look within and find that real connection, that we have to the source, which is God. Okay, so and when we do that, when we do not let go, obviously we will bear fruit, we will continue to thrive. So with that, I'd like to start off with my journey as a domestically abused wife when I was in my 20s. So I got married at the age of 27. So that is not too young, that's not too old. So I thought I was very, prepared for marriage. I was quite mature. I was very independent even after university. So it wasn't like I was thrown into a shocking situation. I was prepared for it. I was in a very healthy relationship with my ex-husband. Well, when we were still boyfriend and girlfriend, when we were still in that relationship, we were really okay until we got married. So the pain and the troubles started to arise when we got married, not because he was a bad person, but because our circumstances pushed both of us to our limits. Okay, so when the financial burdens were there, the stresses of being new parents, the in-laws weren't very supportive, well, not at all supportive, because they didn't attend, at least on his side. He was very upset when they didn't attend our wedding. There were just so many factors that led him to become a person that he wasn't really meant to be. Okay, so I knew he was a good person, but I think people, when pushed to their limits, sometimes, are not able to cope properly. So that's when I started to take all the punches, like literally, I'm not even going to get into the details, but it was really bad. And that was way back in 2000. And well, the first time it happened was in 2001. No, well, no. Yeah, 2000, late 2001 until I gave birth in 2003. So it was happening even when I was pregnant. And unfortunately, it was only, I think, in 2006 that the government started creating programs, against violence for women. So when I actually discussed that with one police officer recently, she was telling me that, back in the day during your time, there were no programs, police officers couldn't meddle in situations like that. So again, it wasn't a very pleasant experience. What it made me was a very scared person. I was usually very active. I was fit. I was working out. I was very happy with my job as a hotelier. But then, when you get punched, from from different directions, sometimes it just really, you know, how to say, diminishes your self-esteem. No, we really get so used to it that sometimes you actually feel that this is what we deserve. And I was in that state of mind. I was trying to protect him from everybody. I was defending him. Nobody in my family knew at the time, because ladies, when you are being abused, the first instinct that you'll have is to protect your partner at all costs. Okay, and the reason for that is you don't want your parents to be upset, you don't want your husband to get in trouble. Sometimes it's also very embarrassing for you, for us. So we tried to stay silent to keep the peace. And of course, I was still hoping that things could work out, because we had a daughter, we have a baby girl, we had a baby girl. So yeah, name it, it's verbal abuse, calling me names, physical abuse, the silent treatment, leaving me and our baby girl in the house, the constant lying, the cheating, name it, I experienced it. Okay. So one thing I realized, okay, at that time was, yes, it was being done to me by my ex-husband, but I was also allowing it to happen to me. In a way, my state of mind was, okay, this is what I deserve. Maybe this is what I was destined to experience. So it was also a very low self-esteem that made the situation worse. Okay, so what did I realize? I realized at some point that we need to choose to be the victor, not the victim. I always had that victim mentality, at the back of my head. I wasn't doing it consciously, okay? It was back in my head that, sometimes being the bunso, being the youngest, so I was the bunso. Well, I'm the bunso. And I used to be quite spoiled with my mom, I must admit. Okay. I was not spoiled rotten, but I was quite spoiled. Like every time I didn't want to go to school, I would, like pretend that I'm sick, like mom, I have fever, I have colds. And then my mom would say, oh, kawawa naman, poor you. Okay, don't go to school. So again, I'm not blaming my mom for it. She was very loving, she was very caring. But I think I learned to develop the victim mentality. Like, look at me, poor me. If I am, if this is how the world sees me, then maybe I will get sympathy or empathy or compassion from everyone. And because of that kind of mentality, I sort of attracted more abuse. You know what I mean? Like it even enhanced my script of look at me, poor me. But I mean, it was just really a bad thing. Okay. So this is one of the biggest lessons that I learned, that there is a button in our heads, or maybe even in our hearts, to that we can switch on to victor mode, okay, by saying that, you know what, I don't deserve this. I want to be in charge of my life. And so that was the time when I moved out of the marriage. Okay. I'm doing a fast forward version. I've moved out of the marriage. I filed for the annulment. It was not an easy process. It was very emotional. It would have been different if I didn't love my ex-husband. Okay. So if I didn't love him, you know how sometimes couples go through annulment after 20 years of being married only because they grew apart. But at that time, I was very much in love. I knew he loved me. I thought so, that he loved me. And it was hard, but I just had to move out of that marriage because I needed to say no. Well, I needed to say no to that marriage so I can say yes to bringing out a better version of myself. Okay. And hence, I dedicated my life in raising our only daughter, Sophia. Okay. So it has been just her and me for a long time, okay? And that's another story because she's 21 years old now and she has left the nest. I'm now officially an empty nester, and that's again another journey that I am undertaking right now. But she has been my source of strength. She has been a lovely companion to me. But there's so many lessons I learned being a single mom or a solo mom. Okay. I was just really quite lucky that my parents were there when we separated. Um, I got the support that I needed from my parents. And then, of course, we stayed with my parents for a few months, but I thought to myself, I don't want to burden my elderly parents. I wanted to be independent. So I moved my daughter, of course, my daughter and I moved to an apartment in Makati. It was a very small studio. I didn't even show my parents what it looked like because I know they will be devastated because, it was very small for the two of us. But in my mind and in my heart, I was very proud of myself to have been able to do that without the support of anyone. I was showing my daughter as she was growing up that life is not perfect, and people go through problems, but you don't have to keep you know um giving up or bad mouthing people. Just move forward. And at that time, as a young mother, I realized that that was all I could afford. So at least there was no drama, no issues. So what I realized is that getting out of an abusive marriage entailed making serious life decisions. It wasn't an impulsive thing that I made or I decided on. It was something that really made me think hard. Because ladies, I'll be honest, when I was going through that whole emotional, physical, and verbal abuse from my husband, I wasn't really in a very good place mentally, you know. I would not focus on my work. I would not do well. In fact, I lost my job. My boss literally said, "I think we need you to resign because you're no longer performing properly." So, you know, again, I just spiraled, and I thought, you know, this is not the kind of life that I want. Okay, so what were these decisions? Okay, let me just identify three major decisions that I'd like to share when I moved out of that marriage. Okay, so the first decision that I made was to take a hard look at myself, like literally hard look. What do I have? What don't I have? Yes, I may have lost a marriage, but I still have my brains, I still have my family, I still have my education, I still have my daughter. And I started counting the blessings. Yes, I've lost a lot of opportunity to have a complete family. But I realized that just because you come from a broken home, let's say my daughter came from a broken home, it does not mean that she has to be a broken person. And that's what I inculcated in her. And hence, what I did was I set up a business. Okay, so this was already when I left the hotel because I lost my job. I was forced to resign. So I thought, what am I gonna do? So I thought to myself, when I took a hard look at myself, I said, there are so many other domestically abused women out there who come from impoverished backgrounds. And so to cut the long story short, because that was a whole process of looking for groups who can support me in my mission was to look for domestically abused women from impoverished backgrounds, have them train, you know, how to do massages, facials, manicure and pedicure. So taught them livelihood skills. And God willing, you know, I was very, very blessed to have been able to start a spa and a salon business that hired only domestically abused women, but this time from impoverished backgrounds and ladies who did not even finish elementary school. Because in my head, I was thinking, okay, we are both domestically abused. We went through violence. We went through marital issues, but I'm still lucky because I graduated with a diploma, you know, from the Ateneo. So it's not like I'm from the poorest of the poor, you know, segment of society. And here are these ladies who didn't even get to finish elementary school. They don't have opportunities to apply, even in the, you know, supermarkets, because in the supermarkets or department stores, you are required to at least finish high school. So that was my thrust. I requested the help of somebody to, you know, to look for these kinds of women. And again, that's another long story. But to cut the long story short, this business thrived because I came from the hotel. And when I shared with my former colleagues that this is the business that I have, they gave us contracts actually to supply the hotel with, you know, manicurists and facialists, you know, to do room service for their female guests. So you will see here in this photo Ricky Reyes because the whole business concept was actually featured in his show in ABS-CBN at that time because it was really a social enterprise. I didn't really think of making money at that time. It was really more like to help heal these women, these less fortunate women, seeing them, you know, thrive, seeing them bring back the life in their eyes again. It was almost like healing me 100% from my own traumas and my own pain. So the lesson there is decision number one is turn my deepest pain into my life purpose. And to this day, it has already been 21 years or 20, yeah, 22 years since we were separated. I always do this. Whatever pain I have in my life, I just find the purpose behind it. I'm not saying that my life has been perfect. It's far from it. I still go through a lot of painful experiences, whether it's, you know, death of a loved one or, you know, like my daughter leaving the nest and all. These are all painful experiences for me, but instead of me wallowing or blaming or questioning God, it's always like, what is the purpose behind this? How can I turn this into something that will propel me to make an impact on other people? So this is one, and I'm very happy that I was invited tonight because again, this is another opportunity for me to share this piece of wisdom, because I learned this it's not me, it's God speaking to me. Like, what are you going through? Are you having health challenges? Are you having financial challenges? Are you having relationship challenges? So these are the things that we ask ourselves. Then what is the purpose behind this? Maybe, just maybe, God is letting us reflect on the opportunity to help others who are also going through the same thing. Because we don't have to have a perfect life to be able to help other people. In fact, when you're able to help other people, when you yourself are in need of help, that is already the biggest fulfillment, at least in my case. And then, of course, moving forward, so as soon as I realized that I can turn my deepest pain into my life purpose, that's the kind of business that I got into. Again, this is a long story, so just fast forward. I set up a company called Consult Asia Global, which is the training company that sustained me and my daughter since birth, since I gave birth to her. When I left the hotel, I started doing training consultancy. I started with hotels because I knew the people in the industry. So they said, I was telling them, I cannot go full time anymore because I have a baby. I had a baby. And so they said, oh, maybe you can do part time. You can train some of our salespeople, which I did, which eventually turned into a formal and an official consulting firm. So again, the element of helping others is there. I just simply cannot do any kind of work that has no social impact. I think because life happened to me in a much different way from my friends. Sometimes when I talk to my friends, it's almost like I ask them, how come your lives are just so chill, so smooth, and here I am. It's almost like a roller coaster ride. And then they would respond to me with something like, "Well, Tinette, because you have a bigger mission to help people." So I wanted to think of it that way. So with Consult Asia, the business that I set up is and this has allowed me to do talks around the world, to do training for different companies, just making sure that you know I become passionate about helping and adding value to others. So again, you start off with turning your pain into purpose and then focus on just helping. I mean, it's just really um, pushing me to look outside myself. The more I look at myself, the more depressed I get, or the more self-centered I get. But when I start looking outside, who can I impact? I know my skills, I know my strengths. That was when I took a hard look at myself. I knew what I was capable to do. So why keep it to myself? And I always seek God. I always ask him to use me as an instrument in my business. So true enough, with that, I was quite blessed with very, very good clients who trusted me since day one. Till this day, they are still my source of income, and I was able to put myself through graduate school, put my daughter to a good school. So very, very blessed. So that was also when I decided to take higher studies at the University of Oxford. And just to give you a quick story on this, a backstory on this. So in my consulting practice, there was one client, actually, it was a government agency here in the Philippines, who turned me down. And it's just so uncanny because at that time they told us it was a bidding process. And they said, oh, Tinette, we love your program, but we might not be able to choose you this time. And I said, sir, why not? And he said, well, because you don't have any master's degree. And so I'm like, what? You love our training program, you love our presentation, Everything was perfect except for my credentials. And I know it was, it was a small thing for some people, but for me, that was quite a challenge. Again, it was such a huge challenge because it was a long bidding process. We spent months to prepare for that presentation. And then all of a sudden, they'll say, oh, you don't qualify because you don't have any master's degree. And he even said in a very condescending manner, maybe you can look at some schools there. It doesn't have to be Ateneo or UP or LaSalle. It can be something. And I'm thinking, wow, what a very nasty thing to say, because I mean, Ateneo, UP, and LaSalle are not the only good schools in the Philippines. You can choose any school you want, right? So this person really had something in his head. So what was lesson number one? Turn your pain into purpose. So I said, so I started to Google that night. I was crying, driving myself home. I was crying and I said, let me try to research where I can take an MBA and all. And then I looked at, schools here in the Philippines. They're quite pricey as well. So I challenged myself. I really wanted to make sure I challenged myself. So I looked at other schools abroad. Of course, the first thing that came to mind was Harvard, and it's quite expensive. But then it ranked number 6 in the world. And I'm thinking, yabang ko, no? uh, I was thinking, ang mahal-mahal, and then number 6 lang. So might as well look for, the number 1 university in the world. And Oxford came out in the list, and our friend here from the UK can attest to that. You can only have Oxford or Cambridge in the UK, right? So I applied, and lo and behold, after such a difficult process, I made it and I graduated with distinction. And that was again another breakthrough for me. And I thought to myself, nothing is impossible. Okay, so what is the lesson there? I expanded myself. I was able to get international clients, like huge companies like the LVMH Group, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, holding all these wonderful brands around the globe, traveling to Paris, to New York, and other parts of the world. Because of that, I did not put any limitation to what I can do. And again, it wasn't at the back of my head, I still had the client from the government agency in my head. And I'm thinking, maybe I should go back to him and present again. But of course, I didn't do that. But what is the lesson here? The lesson is decision number 3: continue to discover the best version of myself and inspire others to do the same. I am not saying that you take an MBA. I'm not saying that you go back to school, because we all have different paths. So my take on this is, ask yourself, where is the Lord leading you? Each one of us has her own purpose, and each one of us has her own path. You cannot compare your own path to your mother or to your sister or to your best friend. It's different. Some people would want to take higher studies. Some people wouldn't even want to finish university, and that's absolutely fine. Even if you don't finish college, it's okay. Maybe you have a different path, but you have to look deep down. What is it that I want? Okay, so to move on from that marriage, I cannot believe how far I have, grown, and I have become wiser. Let's put it that way. Because back in the day, I wouldn't even believe I can, because my ex-husband would always say, "Oh, you're so sorry for my French, but you're so stupid." He would literally use those kinds of words about me, and I would believe those. So to change the wiring of my brain, I realized that I needed to do something different. Okay, so what is the lesson here? Okay, like I remember a story was shared with us in classroom back in the day, that there was a group of grade school students who did an experiment on a butterfly. So they kept the butterfly in a jar. First day, they saw the butterfly trying to come out of the jar. Second day, they saw the butterfly flying in the middle of the jar. And on the third day, they saw the butterfly staying at the bottom of the jar. Of course, the lid had holes in it, so the butterfly will not die, right? So when the kids tried to open the bottle, they were expecting the butterfly to fly out of the bottle, but Surprisingly, it stayed there. It didn't even move. It was flapping its wings, but it didn't go out of the jar. So the lesson there is, so we sometimes have this thing called learned helplessness. When we put a limit to ourselves that, okay, this is just my, this is just my role. I am just a mom, or I'm just a wife. I have to put everybody first. I'm last. And when opportunities arise, let's say the lid of the jar is opened, then you don't want to go out anymore. You don't want to do anything anymore that would make you a better person, or would make you grow, or would make you stretch yourself and make an impact to more people. So we are all made to what? To fly out of that jar. Butterflies are not made to stay inside a jar. They're made to fly in the garden, making the flowers even more beautiful. Okay, so these are just some of the things that the three major decisions that I made. So when others ask me, what do I tell, how do I cope to that? What do I do to cope? Okay, just a quick one. Again, I've summarized them into three major points. Number one, understand the power of your brain. Okay. Sometimes we let our emotions run our lives. I know it's hard. Women are made that way. Okay. But please believe me when I say that no matter how emotional we are, how distressed we are, if you just look at your brain, it is like literally the control center of everything in your life. If you say to your brain, look, like in my case, whenever I'm down, so I cry myself to sleep sometimes, I'll tell myself, okay, not again. Okay. I'm going to cry, but only for 30 minutes. I'm giving myself that rational um boundary, like, okay, tonight you can cry, but for 30 minutes, cry it out loud. If you have to, finish up all the tissue paper at home, do it. Okay. But after 30 minutes, you're gonna take a shower, put some light makeup on, get dressed, and get yourself a cup of hot tea somewhere. Treat yourself to some ice cream. Really, the brain will literally have to, you have to make it your ally. Okay, because scientifically speaking, a stressed brain like the one on the right, if you notice, it's really the emotional aspect of the brain. In fact, emotions don't come from the heart, emotions come from the brain. So every time you think, kawawa naman ako. Oh, I'm alone. Oh, it's so lonely. Oh my God, I don't have money. Oh, I'm getting unhealthy. The more we talk to ourselves that way, the more we are going to feel worse about ourselves. But let's say your husband, and in my case, my husband was already insulting me to the core, literally to the core, including my family, everything about me, okay, at that time. And I literally had to rewire my brain when I moved out of the marriage. I had to surround myself with um, positive people, people who are winners, people who are fighters, regardless of whatever they're fighting for. If they're fighting for their health, or fighting for their jobs, or fighting for anything, it's just empowering when you are surrounded by people who are not victims, but rather victors in their way of thinking. Okay, so do not underestimate the power of your brain. Number two, take the proactive approach, not the reactive one. So if something is happening to us, let's say life throws something at us, okay, all you have to say to yourself is, you know what, I am in charge of my life. Whatever it is your choice. If your alarm goes off in the morning, let's say it starts alarming, your phone starts alarming, it's our choice to put snooze or to just wake up, correct? And when you wake up, it's also your choice if you're already going to brush your teeth and take a shower, or you're going to go back to sleep. It's also our choice what to wear that day. If you're planning to wear a sloppy set of clothes versus wearing something that boosts your mood. Let's say you wear your favorite color. That's our choice. Okay. Social media. Okay. The first thing that you look at, for example, are you going to start looking at happy couples that trigger your loneliness? Or are you going to look at maybe children who are needing support? right? So that's what I did. Instead of looking at happy couples, and then I start feeling sorry for myself, I would look at the NGOs or charitable institutions that require my help, that require my volunteering. And it really puts you in a position of strength instead of weakness, isn't it? If you look for ways to help people, it's very empowering. It's not, you're not losing anything, whether you're giving money, giving time, giving talent, it doesn't matter. Okay. So that's number two. And of course, number three is we really got to manage ourselves, our time, our stresses in life. We choose our battles. So for example, it is important for us to have our me time. Ladies, this is something that I sometimes feel bad about, is when I see women literally not giving them their own selves or themselves time, that they are usually caught up in the daily grind of things, taking kids to school, cooking for the family, buying groceries for the family. And then when I ask them, how are you? Oh, and they start resenting their kids, and they start resenting their families. It's not worth it. Okay. You cannot pour anything from an empty cup. So fill up your cup, and then it will runneth over, right? That's biblical. And so my take on this would be, take time. It doesn't have to be a weekend getaway. It can be like 15 minutes in your own room. Just meditate, pray, read some pages in the Bible. You would be so surprised, ladies. I never used to read the Bible in the past, really. But now my Bible is beside my bed. And every time I open the Bible, there's always something there that just answers my question for the day. Sometimes I would just cry. And can I just share with you one thing? One time I was really, really, because my daughter is already living in her own condo, right? So one time I was missing her terribly. And then I said, Lord, what am I going to do? I don't want to stress her out. I don't want to be too clingy or to pressure her or to guilt trip her. And I pulled out my Bible, because that Bible, I gave that to her. And then she left it here because she has like a smaller one. When I opened the Bible, will you believe, what I saw? Before I even got to read the passage, she had notes on the Bible, and she put there. This was the time that I was really crying so hard. Okay. And this was just very recent. It wasn't even years back. It was just probably last month. When I opened the Bible, she had a note there. She said, it was in Proverbs, right? She said, I thank Mama for disciplining me. Because of her, I became a better person. And I cried buckets of, because of gratitude, not because of loneliness, but because of gratitude. Because even tonight, right now, I'm still teary-eyed thinking about it, how God can just communicate to us who are suffering emotionally, mentally, right? He's just there. So take the time to fill your cup up so that we can be better to our family, to our children, to our friends, and even, I'll be honest with you, I forgave my ex-husband. I still allow him to communicate with me, because when it comes to my daughter, I never deprive my daughter from seeing him. So they have a very close relationship, and I told him that I have already forgiven you, not because he asked for forgiveness, because he never did, but because God has put me in such a good place. He has blessed me abundantly that I cannot even imagine not forgiving the person who hurt me the most. So again, ladies, all I can say is point number three. This is how I've lived my life so that Sophia can see what it's like to forgive. Okay. However much as we would want our children to emulate us, we have to accept the fact that our children are not us. They deserve to be their own persons, right? So, in the case of Sophia, yes, I've inculcated in her all the values, showed her, ladies, don't get me wrong, I am not perfect. I have made a lot of mistakes during the time that I was recuperating and healing from the traumatic experiences. I also I have said things that probably hurt my daughter emotionally, which I regret, but I've already sought her forgiveness for that. Because when when you are a troubled person, sometimes you tend to pass on your being troubled to other people, right? And I felt so guilty having passed that on to my daughter at some point. But at the end of the day, we are not perfect, and only God can heal. So for those of you who may be going through the same journey as I have or as I am, my message to you is this, okay? You just lift everything up to God, which I have done myself. Lift everything up to God. Trust the process, trust his plan, and trust his plan, trust his process, and trust his timing. Because sometimes, even if we push it, if we push and pull our life situation, if it is not aligned to his will, it will not happen. So again, that is what my book is all about. So I literally wrote a book as soon as my daughter left the nest. This is just a summary of the chapter of when I was mothering her under my wings. So I published this in December of 2023. So it's already out. I've put in my website there. So if any of you would be interested to take a look at the book and to have copies of the book and give it as gifts to your friends, of course, we're more than happy to share it with you. But yes, it's almost like closing a chapter of my life, because the first 20 years of my daughter would be under my wings, under my care. But now she's independent, and it's almost like I have to step back and watch her thrive in her own way. So again, just to wrap up, um, I I I I am here. If any one of you would like to connect, I'm more than happy to connect and listen. I see some questions in the chat box, but let me end my talk with a quote. It says, "Stop focusing on how stressed you are, and remember how blessed you are." Okay, so all right, so I think I'm going to close this talk and pass you on to Alyssa if you have questions. Again, my name is Tonette Cortez. Thank you so much for listening, ladies, and I hope you were blessed with this short talk, and that you will have that strength to move forward in life and never ever blame yourself for anything. We all make mistakes. And if you are in an abusive marriage or in any kind of abusive relationship, I am not asking you what to do, or I'm not telling you what to do, sorry. But all I'm saying is take a hard look at yourself, go back to your purpose, pray to God for guidance, and then move forward with love and care for others. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.